Yo, what is up, Poe fans? I have a video planned for you guys that's more focused around PoE2, and that's coming out shortly. But for now, I wanted to show you guys some technology that I remember discovering back in Sanctum League when this build that I'm showing you guys was very popular. This is, of course, the Summon Raging Spirits build with the Poison variant. I'm using, as you see, a legacy version of United in Dream. But don't worry, the technology I plan to show you still applies to this build today. And it focuses around getting about 500,000 damage while also gaining about 7,000 armor for free, while basically only using a jewel slot and a few passives to path up here to Hexmaster. Now, I'm of course talking about using the Militant Faith Timeless Jewel that is devoted in the name of, it's Avarius. Yes, it is an Avarius Timeless Jewel. Now I will search through my stash to see where it is, because I had one, and then I remember speccing out of it towards the end of this build's lifespan once I started hitting really good gear. Is it here? It is this one, I think. Yes. So if I equip this jewel right here that I had in Sanctum League, as you can see, this bad boy gives me 1% increased minion attack and cast speed per 10 devotion. That's really nice. If you've played this build before, you know that attack speed, minion attack speed specifically, is like a more multiplier to your damage, because your poisons can stack infinitely on enemies, and attack speed is just scaling how quickly your minions add those poisons to enemies. So this is, you get 1% increase per 10 devotion, and as you can see, these small nodes give you 10 devotion, and the big ones give you 5. So of course you're now turning intelligence nodes, well, what were once intelligence nodes into damage nodes. It's really good. Then what I did was I remember pathing up here 4 nodes, 1, 2, 3, 4 to get Power of Purpose. And so how that is beneficial to the build, and I remember cutting out some cluster jewels to get out to there. So let's just do that. Fuck it. Try to recreate the build as I had it going before I swapped over to my several divine clusters. All right. So I'm just gonna respec out of some nodes here, and yeah, sure, we don't have decks. Rip. Okay. And actually, I wanted to refund every single one of my passives, so that's just perfect. But what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna path out here, completely ruin the character. Who cares, man? It's standard. I don't. How do I? Okay, there we go. Hell yeah. Apply points. So what this does for your character, for my now dead character of this build, I'm gonna equip Eldritch Battery too to further prove the point. What this does is it converts 80% of your max mana into twice that much armor. If you played this build, you'd know that despite my very pitiful mana pool currently, you know this build has no problem getting about 1,500 mana just incidentally, just from all of the small nodes that you're taking around the tree to path to things that you absolutely need for minion builds, right? I know Baylor Mage and Gazzy's version of this tree typically scales all the way over here, you know, to get Spiritual Command and Sacrifice. Well, doing that, you're getting all of these int nodes, right? You're just accumulating so much intelligence naturally, which is good for your ES pool, especially if you can use uniques or even just leverage mind over matter in some way to make use of your energy shield defensively, in addition to how it's already offensively being used as your de facto mana source, right? Because Eldritch Battery with this build is how we cast Summon Raging Spirits, which is normally a very expensive spell. But in addition to that, right, that energy shield, and I kind of already just said this, but if you can work in an Aegis Aurora, which I do, and equip Mind Over Matter, you can make your energy shield into damage. Into survivability. And what's especially powerful about that is Aegis Aurora gives you energy shield back based on your armor when you block. Taking Power of Purpose gives you a crap ton of armor. It gives you about 7,000 armor. It gave me about 7,000 armor for my build when I allocated this node. So thinking, right, about how this node, this keystone notable works for the build, it kind of takes all of the mana that you weren't using because of Eldritch Battery, converting that mana converting your energy shield into mana and allowing you to reserve all of your mana, which you do in this build, right? You remember playing this build, you're probably using Precision, you're probably using it with things like Generosity, which don't really affect the mana cost of it, just makes it so that it affects your minions. But you're using all of your mana, right? Because you have your energy shield to use in place of it. And you're even using things like a Divine Blessing setup. This Keystone Notable takes all of that worthless mana, all of that 1,500 mana or so that you're reserving, and turns it into about 7,000 armor worth. and it makes every other intelligence node that you path through that much more valuable to your energy shield when you're using something like Aegis Aurora to even further push your energy shield as a defensive layer and your armor as a defensive layer to conjoin, right, to create a lot of sustain for your build. There's another thing that I did with this entire setup that really took it over the top in my opinion, which is when I equipped an Aegis Aurora, and like I said, I equipped I used Mind Over Matter. I also used, if I can find it, Melding of the Flesh. Is it on my tree? No. Lol, it was right here the whole time. Okay, well, I also, and it was hard to fit this in, I'm gonna warn you, okay? You're gonna need to screw around with a lot of things. But I also equipped, let's see if I can find it. I know I can. I've got like 3 of these things. I'll find it. I'm finding that melding, man. I'm committed. I could just edit it on screen. You guys probably know what I'm talking about, but there it is. No, it's not it. It's on another character. I can't find it right now. There's this item that we're all familiar with, or maybe not. That's why I'm trying to pull it up. I'm gonna pull it up right here. It's an item that some of us are familiar with, and for those that aren't, it's called Melding of the Flesh. And basically, whenever I have a build that just randomly gets like anywhere from between 3 to 5% max res in one element, I'm already looking at this item, right? Because especially a perfectly rolled version of this item gives you it gives you -4 max res and it gives you -70 all res, but it allows you to take that random 3-5% and in this league, this was Sanctum League, I had a relic that also gave me +3 max cold res. And that was enough for me to be like, okay, I have 8 cold res max just sitting around. Let's see if I can't do something with this and push 90 cold res. I was actually able to push 89% all res, which would have been 93 max cold res with this build with a bunch of other additions. Like I believe I had going, this super elevated, this is an exquisite, you're gonna spend a lot of money trying to roll a +2, but I had a +2 max cold res here on the gloves. I was also using the frick, and I was probably doing this in my clusters. Can I just scroll to my clusters? Where is the I fit into this build as well one of these things. I also fit one of these things in here, an Impossible Escape, which allowed me to, and these are expensive, you can find cheaper versions of it. Budget version would use Unwavering Stance. The non-budget version is going to use Imbalanced Guard, Impossible Escape. You slot that into any random jewel, and it lets you take passives that are in a small radius around a certain keystone that isn't connected to your tree. So you do something like this. You take this jewel, Impossible Escape, slot it into, say, this spot right here in like a cluster jewel or just any other random jewel slot. There's an Amanamus. There's the melding. There it is. Hey, I knew I had it. So here's my Melding of the Flesh. Where's my Impossible Escape? Can I type in Impossible? It's got to be somewhere here. Take an Impossible Escape, get it in the form of Imbalanced Guard or cheaper versions, Unwavering Stance, and then grab yourself Prismatic Skin, and if you have the Imbalanced Guard variant, you can take Soul of Steel for an extra 3% max res. And that alone can push you up to, like, with the -4 max res that you're getting from melding, up to like a respectable 81 to 82 max res across the board. And that's just very juicy and comfortable. That's some added tech. That's some like diving into the line of trying to push Aegis melding even further, or just Aegis. Trying to push Aegis even further involves melding. But if you just want that complete package right there of having a very solid defensive package on an already solid damage build, it's going to be more difficult to get suppress capped. I will say this, right? You're going an armor route of the build by getting Power of Purpose and leaning into Aegis Aurora. It's going to be hard to get suppress cap if you're going to be leaning into the armor variant. But what you trade in suppression, which is a very power defensive mechanic. I'm not trying to underrate suppression here. What you trade though is a fuck ton of all res, max all res, and a decent chunk of armor as well. I was able to, I think with a Mage Blood, hit about 60k armor pretty respectably, just period, on this build. No questions asked, no conditions necessary, just straight up 60k armor, running around, tankiest balls. Cap block, cap spell block, of course, because you know, we're running Bone Offering and crap like that. So yeah, that was all I wanted to show you. Have a wonderful day.